How hit has Niger State been with this year's flood and flooding?
Well, thank you very much. For Niger State, this is the worst that we have ever experienced in the last 10 years as regards flooding. As you do know that Niger State is blessed with major rivers and their tributaries. And that's why we have the 3 major hydroelectric dams, the Java Dam and the Kayenji Dam and of course Shiroro. And of course, all of them, this year have overflown, and of course, the communities, downstream suffered, devastating effect of floods. I will tell you that I had been on water, to really do assessment for more than 10 hours with my team, and what we saw is really, heart-rending because. You have River Niger course. Most of the communities, on the River Niger had actually completely got submerged. Now, off River Niger, you go to 10 kilometers, 15 kilometers, all water. And all the farmlands now have actually been, submerged. That's for River Niger. But you also have River Kaduna. River Kaduna downstream of Shiroro, most of the communities there have also been, devastated. Their farmlands, overflown. And of course, where River Kaduna joins River Niger, Moregi area, again, the whole of those communities, have, been affected. As of today, we have a rough estimate of over 116,000, households, that have been completely displaced, and we have close to, 900,000 hectares. Of farmlands, that have been completely submerged. Now, usually these riverine communities where, rice is majorly produced, sugarcane, and of course maize, and all of these, have really been lost, to these floods. A rough estimate of over 4 billion naira, of what is lost, in terms of value of crops, has, been estimated. And like the DG, has said, it seems that it's not going away. We thought, by now, the waters, will begin to recede. But unfortunately, it is still where it is. And of course, most of these communities that have been affected have lost their houses because of the weak nature of the usual, community settlements that we have. When water remains, for months, you find that, it weakens, most of these buildings and they begin to collapse. We have lost bridges, and some, some assets, livestock. But we are lucky that, we have not lost many lives as had been experienced in the past. But in terms of economic value, it's been very, very devastating.
Thank you, SSJ. So, and east of Niger are very prone to flooding. So, how have you taken advantage of, the early warning predictions coming from NISA and NIMET, to broaden your actions?
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Let me respond quickly to some of the major issues, and really to say that, states, have been proactive, to deal with this situation. We are very conscious of NIMET, early warning, and like the governor of His Excellency, the governor of Nasarawa said, we also, sensitize our people, mobilize them, towards, them to respond, to likely effects of flooding. But there are two ways to it. Some of these communities have cultural affinity to their ancestral lands and all of this, so they will not want to completely vacate. For those who have identified that, because they're prone to annual flooding, we want to take them to higher grounds. Now, taking them to higher grounds in permanent resettlement areas require money. In fact, for Niger, we have identified about 3-4 of these communities. Each one of them will spend no less than 5 to 10 billion naira to resettle them. And then becomes capital intensive. For their farmlands, they believe that because of the nature of their farmlands, they want to retain them. And so what we have seen this year is to say that all the farmlands have been taken over, not directly again affecting the communities themselves. They've been able to survive, but their farmlands have gone. Now, I also want to look at we do not, as a country, begin to give palliatives every year. And this is the dimension that the Federal Minister of Agriculture need to align with the states. It's not just when the, floods happen and then they recede and then you go and, give them support. No. What are the permanent solutions? And for me, I see these flood waters as a major asset. Why can't we harvest this water, for greater, economic impact for these communities?
What is stopping the sub-governments from doing that?
Yeah, but it's a lot of money. Now, let me also give you a permanent solution, because Nigeria is also not, does not have lack of ideas. We have the HAPADEC. The HAPADEC, was the Hydropower Producing Areas Development Commission. We have, really extensively looked at what are the requirements for these communities, to really, deal with the issue of annual flooding, deal with the permanent settlement of these communities, and of course for the greater prosperity for these communities. But 10 years after the HAPADEC bill, nothing has been done. And we have realized that, for major, states that are prone to this annual, flooding, they need to really, be supported so that we can have permanent solutions. We're talking about Kebbi, we're talking about Niger State, we're talking of Kwara, Kogi, and part of Plateau. And then once we're able to deal with this, we do not wait, until the floods come. In fact, we can even maximize, the benefits of the floods. Because many of these farmers, the communities, are farmers and fishermen. And then they utilize, the natural resource, for them to access their livelihoods. So we need to have more permanent solution, do things differently. Let's not look at it as an annual thing. Let's have a permanent solution, to this. The states have limitations. For Niger, we have 3, age swords. Most of the communities have suffered from, act of banditry and all of this. They have left their homelands, the little time they had to farm. Now, floods have taken over. 2, of course, it becomes annual. COVID was there. Many of them have just managed, to survive out of it. And again, floods, came in and wiped out whatever they have left or the little they have done. And of course, and if we continue like this, we cannot stop these dams from, opening, their spillways, when the water gets, into the dams and overflowing. So this is something that we need to do, as a permanent solution. The HAPADEC Development Commission needs to be, activated so that these states, can have access, to some good solutions. Research should be part of it. Livelihoods in the development framework should be part of it. And of course, permanent settlements, for those who are prone, who are on the lower grounds, can also be, resolved. And I believe that, once we do that, we'll come to an end, as far as, annual floodings and if
that will be doubtful. The latter part of the comment you just made, SSG, it will be doubtful. And I'm happy that the experts.
Connection there. Hopefully, if we do have time, we'll return to you to conclude. But SSG Niger, what do you have to say to that? And again, take this along with you. One of the key items in this year's World Food Day is how to sustain agricultural products. So I would like for you to also speak on that.
Well, thank you very much. Let me align, the approach to participation of women, and youth in agriculture. We do know that, in the northern part of the country, 60% or more of agricultural activities are actually taken by women. Now, usually it's up the value chain. They may not be into direct production, but when you're talking of processing, commodity, marketing, and all of this, it's taken by women. So, of course, in terms of decision making, well, it depends on, which level you're talking about, within the value chain. However, in terms of ownership of productive assets, yes, that could be an area where, there is need, to expand, the scope for women. And I think I align completely with the UN Women, And of course, in terms of sustaining, agricultural productivity, production, and of course, food security, we need to really look at two areas or 3. One, these smallholder farmers should have access, to improve inputs, fertilizers, seedlings, whether it's for, fisheries or livestock and all of that. And I think that way, we can improve, the productivity, so that they can, over time, be able, to sustain their production and, of course, make more money, out of those investments. 2, of course, we need to bring in more of, these categories of people, younger people, need to go into agriculture, women need to go more into agriculture, because today agriculture should be seen as a business rather than the usual approach to programming of the sector that we used to experience. And believe me, today, if you go to some of these communities in Niger, for instance, you see young people making money. I had a young person who goes into irrigation for rice. He makes an average of 10 million naira per year. And that is more than, enough to sustain him and to sustain, the sector. And if you have more of the younger people going into agriculture, I think that will be an element for sustainability. And lastly, of course, is the agricultural infrastructure. Now, we talk about, multiple cropping. You cannot do multiple cropping without good irrigation infrastructure. And I think this is where we need to focus on, so that at least, year in, year out, farmers, will continue to produce. And we believe that because of the growing population, we need to have an increase, the rate of agricultural production should actually be able to match our population. Otherwise, we might be resorting again back to importation. Today, we are happy that, we are self-sufficient in rice production. We are nearly self-sufficient to maize and other related crops. And I think we need to interrogate this more so that we'll be able to increase the scope and sustain, the momentum in terms of production.
All right, thank you very much, Ahmed Matane, SSG Niger State. Let's bring in once again Mr. Fred Kafero of the FAO. Of course, this will be like your closing thoughts. As earlier you were talking about, we also would like to thank the Secretary to the State Government of Niger, that's Ahmed Matane. We'd like to thank you. We're having you in our studios today for the first time. We used to take you from Mina during the COVID, at the peak of the COVID-19 issues.
Yes.
Thank you very much for being in our studios this morning.
Thank you once again.
We'd like to appreciate what Nigerians will call our regular customer, the DG of NISA, that is the Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, Engineer Clement Nse. Thank you very much always for your insights on this very important issue. A deep thanks also to Abdullahi Abubakar, Director of Mechanization in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. Lansana Warner, who is UN Women Deputy Country Rep in Nigeria, we thank you for being around. And last but not the least,